A useful metaphor for grounding is the experience of walking out of a movie theater. You're seeing these things play over and over again, and you're choosing to walk out and disengage from that rumination, from those thoughts that just keep playing over and over in your mind. And there's intention in that. It's our ability to disconnect from those habits and to re engage in a more neutral or adaptive way. I'm sure you're thinking right now, which one am I? But most of us go into one of those categories more often than not. Do you feel more overwhelmed by emotions, or do you block them out and become out of touch with them? Other people will call this numbing. This is Dr. Laura. Welcome to Mind Candy Podcast, where we empower women's voices and tackle current issues related to psychology. Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind Candy. This is Dr. Laura. Today I am doing a part 2 regarding our work on self-care and mindfulness and our discussions related to these two really important issues. Before we spoke about what was self-care, what is mindfulness, and demystifying some of the misconceptions of what these things are. And therapy buzzwords are often used interchangeably, incorrectly. So hopefully after part 1, you have a bit of a better understanding of just really the essence of self-care and mindfulness. I think it's also really important to talk about how you can engage in self-care and mindfulness in your daily life. How is this applicable to us? How is it useful for you to use? It's okay to know what something is, but I think it's even more important to begin that curious journey of how you can use it in your everyday life. So, like we spoke about before, overall, self-care and mindfulness, they improve focus, they increase energy levels, they assist in our mood, they ideally increase our mood, and they really can impact our overall performance. It's really important every day when we are addressing all of the demands in our personal and professional life. And it's really important to disengage from that high octane, high stress environment and re-engage with the present moment. And this doesn't just help our mind, it helps our body as well. Disengage and get out of fight or flight. So as a quick review from our part 1, self-care refers to the actions we take to nurture our physical, mental, and emotional health. It's really about recognizing our needs and making time for activities that replenish and rejuvenate us. This sounds so simple, doesn't it? But it's not. It is so hard when we have so many things coming at us from work, from home, from within us. All the demands of everyday life, they pile up. And so this whole concept of self-care, I think we can dismiss it as something that's extra and not necessary. However, I wonder if you can think back on a time when it became necessary, maybe when you experienced irritability or burnout or exhaustion. And then suddenly self-care is not this optional thing anymore. It's necessary for us to be able to reintegrate and function in society and in our daily lives again. And so the ideal, we don't just use self-care as something that is optional and when we need it, or at a point when we are performing triage on ourselves mentally and emotionally. We use it every day. And a new phrase that's used, it's often popular, microdosing, right? We microdose the self-care every day. We're very intentional about it. And then you'll find that more likely than not, those huge upticks in your stress and your anxiety, suddenly they don't happen as much anymore. And this is a journey we all go on that's individual to us, individual to our personalities, individual to our temperaments, individual to our own needs. So this is going to look different for everyone. And I would highly recommend working with a trusted therapist, psychologist to work on these issues before they get really bad. Because too often I see in my office, people come in when they've been in crisis for months or years, and we have to do a lot of work to get them back to baseline. So that is my nugget for you for today. It may not seem important right now, but I promise it's going to become important eventually, and you don't want to be on the other side of it. It's much better to be on the offense than the defense. So let's review mindfulness. On the other hand, mindfulness is the practice of being present and fully engaged in the moment. We're aware of our thoughts and feelings And it's not about judging what you're doing. It's not about grading what you're doing. I know for all my high achieving, high performance people out there, we're constantly reevaluating and grading ourselves and constantly trying to do better than we did last time. You have plenty of time to do that in your daily life with work and personal endeavors. Mindfulness is a way to disconnect from that high octane, high intensity way of constantly analyzing everything. Mindfulness is an experience you have where there's no judgment and it's intentional, but you're releasing that death grip you have on perfectionism and overanalysis paralysis. So the first thing we want to talk about is how to use grounding in your daily life. As a review, grounding techniques are practices that help us stay connected to the present moment, particularly during times of stress or anxiety. These techniques can be incredibly beneficial for maintaining a sense of stability and calm as they distract our brain and allow our emotional processes to settle. Grounding strategies help a person who is overwhelmed by memories or strong emotions, or maybe you're dissociating or disconnecting from the present moment. These grounding strategies help us become aware of the here and now. A useful metaphor for grounding is the experience of walking out of a movie theater. You're seeing these things play over and over again, and you're choosing to walk out and disengage from that rumination, from those thoughts that just keep playing over and over in your mind. And there's intention in that. And it's our ability to disconnect from those habits and to re-engage in a more neutral or adaptive way. Grounding helps us find a balance between feeling overwhelmed by emotions and being out of touch with them. I'm sure you're thinking right now, which one am I? But most of us go into one of those categories more often than not. Do you feel more overwhelmed by emotions, or do you block them out and become out of touch with them? Other people will call this numbing. So grounding helps us improve sleep, normalize our day-to-day cortisol. It increases rhythms. It reduces pain. It can reduce stress. The shift from the autonomic nervous system, from the sympathetic nervous system, towards the parasympathetic, the rest and digest activation. It increases our heart rate variability. It can help in wound healing, and it reduces blood viscosity. Now, all of these little tidbits here are from the Cleveland Clinic. They're from Mayo Clinic, and you can look them up, and I'll add them to this podcast if you want to read on. What I'm talking about is how they studied this is through biofeedback. When you go into a hospital or a clinic and they hook up these electrodes to you and they measure your heartbeat, they measure your brain waves, they measure people sleeping or resting, and that's how they're getting this data, is they're engaging in these practices and they're watching how people's somatic symptoms change. And it's absolutely astonishing. So to see if it works on you, which with practice it can, and it will, let's do a few techniques together. And if you're curious to learn more, click on the links that I've included in this podcast episode, okay? So the first thing is it's a very simple technique. It's a grounding technique, and it's a 5-4-3-2-1 technique, okay? So this method helps you engage your senses, all 6 of them or 5 of them, and bring your focus back on the present. So how would you do the 5-4-3-2-1 technique? You would look and find 5 things around you that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. So look around and see what are several things you can see around you. 5. Try 5. And then also think about 4 things you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, and 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. For me, it's always coffee because I always have it around me. So that is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Now, if you're wondering, how am I going to remember which number is with which sense? You don't have to. You can if you want. You can memorize this, but you can also just look around you and attach these, the seeing, the touching, the hearing, the smelling, the tasting to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that'll really help you relax a bit when you're engaging in this. For all of my perfectionists out there, there's always a way around this, right? Another technique is body scanning. So what you would do with a body scan grounding technique is that you'd focus your attention on different parts of your body, starting from either your head and working down, or starting from your toes and working your way up. And that is a preference. There's no wrong way to do it. Notice any sensations, tension, or discomfort as you slowly work your way up. So this helps redirect your thoughts from your mind to your physical presence. Why is this important? It's really important, and if you've worked with me, you've probably heard me say this a million times. But grounding is really important when we're working with anxiety, when we're working with trauma, when we're working with depression, when we're working with attention issues. These really important skills are crucial to laying the foundation to work on these disorders and these concerns. Being able to self-regulate and disengage from these really unhelpful behaviors, whether it's ruminations or whether it's hypervigilance or whether it's emotional numbing or overreaction to things, dysregulation, grounding is an essential part of treatment that we start with and that you will start with any psychologist, hopefully. So being aware of the disconnect between our mind and our body when we're working on these concerns, no matter what you're going through, is essential. And with all the distractions of life, we absolutely lose touch with that connection with our mind and body, and it gets completely severed. And so doing things like the 5-4-3-2-1 technique or the body scan are essential in getting yourself reacquainted with that relationship between our mind and our body. The next thing we're going to talk about is guided breathing. Guided breathing exercises are another essential tool for improving mental health and well-being. Simply focusing on the breath and observing its natural rhythm without trying to change it can help increase our mindfulness and reduce tension and stress. Listening to guided breathing sessions available through various apps like Calm or Headspace are very helpful in doing this. Now, those are paid apps, and I have those because I'm a psychologist and I use them for myself and for my clients, but you can also find these tools online. You can search Calm on YouTube, Calm app, guided breathing, and it will show the icon and you can listen to them for free. It's not everything, but it's at least a few things. So it can help to structure this process, okay? Having something that you can go to, a resource that you can go to, and those apps will be included as well. If you're curious of where to go for these apps or what to look at, there's some options connected to this podcast for you. So the guided breathing really helps regulate the nervous system, reduce stress, and promote relaxation. This just isn't for yoga practice. This just isn't for some spiritual connection, right? They use guided therapy in the medical community through not only biofeedback, but for self-care to regulate. They use it for a lot of different holistic purposes in both the medical and the psychological community. So regarding guided breathing, when we take deep breaths, signals are sent to our brain telling us to calm down and relax. These messages are translated throughout our body. It reduces tension and it relieves stress when we are anxious or feeling overwhelmed. Whether that's you're about to give a speech or a presentation or run a meeting or something in your personal life where you're anxious, maybe you're asking someone out on a date or you are, asking for a raise. These are the moments in everyday life that are really, really important to self-regulate to help us get back to that present moment and get out of fight or flight. Deliberately copying a relaxed breathing pattern seems to calm the nervous system that controls the body's involuntary functions. Controlled breathing can cause physiological changes that include lowering our blood pressure and our heart rate, which also reduces levels of stress and hormones in the blood. Mindfulness breathing meditation provides a reduction in scores of stress, depression, and anxiety and better focus. And all of this information, again, is pulled from Cleveland Clinic and Mayo Clinic. And it is regarding their studies on how biofeedback and mindfulness and grounding and breathing exercises impact an individual's resting heart rate, pulse, blood pressure, and through blood work, studying cortisol and hormones in the blood. Mindfulness breathing meditation provides a reduction in scores of all these, and especially deep belly breathing. We'll go through an example in just a moment, but they seem to not only provide psychological relief, but also physiological relief too. And like I said before, those things are very tied together. So one example of this is called deep belly breathing. So you would focus on breathing deeply into your diaphragm, allowing your belly to expand with each inhale and contract with each exhale. This helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system and promote relaxation. It's a really simple but powerful tool, and deep breathing can calm your nervous system. So how would you go about this? You would inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4, holding your breath for a count of 4, and you'd exhale slowly out of your mouth for a count of 6. And you repeat this process several times. Inhaling slowly through your nose to a count of 4, holding your breath for a count of 4, and exhaling slowly for a count of 6 through your mouth. Try this 5 to 6 times. If you become distracted, just refocus on counting, inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 6. Now, these are 2 really important aspects of self-care and mindfulness. Mindfulness, whether it's grounding or deep breathing, are ways in which we can engage in intentional self-care. And becoming curious about how to better our relationship with our mind and our body lays the foundation for becoming the best version of ourselves. If you're interested in learning more about grounding techniques in self-care, whether it's mindfulness or deep breathing or grounding, or any way you can engage in self-care, read the links attached to this podcast episode. It'll help you begin a journey through self-healing, through relaxation, and really just be an awesome part of your day that you're devoting to just you. And it doesn't have to be a 45-minute deep breathing exercise, which sounds wonderful to me, but none of us have time for that. Well, most of us don't. But what you can do is in the morning, in the evening, even in the afternoon, take a few minutes, put a reminder on your phone, put it on your work calendar, and take 2 to 5 minutes to simply close your eyes, relax your jaw, relax your shoulders, relax the tension in your stomach, and take a few deep breaths in through your nose, holding it at the top, and out through your mouth. And you will find that this can do wonders for decreasing stress and anxiety. I'm so excited that we were able to connect today. Don't forget to hit subscribe. This is Dr. Laura from Mind Candy. Have an awesome, awesome day. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Laura with Mind Candy. A quick note just to discuss, as I am an ethical gal, ethical psychologist, none of these subjects or the information in the podcast constitute any kind of therapeutic relationship. All of that information can be found in our terms and conditions. Everything we discuss on Mind Candy are the experience of myself and my guests, and it does not constitute advice or a therapeutic relationship. Thank you so much. And don't forget to hit subscribe.